Hello and welcome to this Project in a Box video. This is something a little bit different from what we normally do. I'm Malcolm West, and for the last 15 years I've been regularly home working both in the UK and overseas. I'm familiar with all the challenges and issues and advantages that brings, and in the light of the number of people that are likely to be home working in the near future, self-segregating, home looking after the children that are off school and all that sort of thing, we thought it would be useful to provide you with some advice and background from our experiences. The first thing is, of course, not to panic. So we're going to be covering this in three sections. The first one about tools, next video about working environment, and then finally about keeping focus. In terms of tools, we're going to break this down into three sections: underlying infrastructure, communications, and shared working environment. So underlying infrastructure, pretty much essential if you want to do any sort of meaningful working from home, is going to be some internet connection. For most people that's going to be a home Wi-Fi, and for some perhaps if you haven't got a home Wi-Fi, then you can use a mobile phone hotspot. You might be working, for example, down the end of the garden even, and therefore you might not have Wi-Fi that reaches that far, so a mobile phone hotspot's pretty good. 4G normally sufficient to do most of the sort of things we're going to talk about here. In extremis, you could ask a neighbour. I've often done that in the past, picking up a neighbour's Wi-Fi. Generally still pretty strong as long as you're fairly close to their router. And or a signal booster is always a good idea. They're great actually, Wi-Fi signal boosters. You can buy them for 20 quid. Amazon will deliver you one next day, and they'll significantly improve your Wi-Fi signal if you're working from a back bedroom where it's poor, somewhere you've not traditionally used Wi-Fi very much in your house, or like I say, down the garden, or picking up from a neighbour. That will really help make it a workable solution. But the first thing is you have to have, realistically, some sort of internet connection to meaningfully work. Communications. Obviously a home phone is the best sort of way for speaking to people, for carrying on the sort of thing you would normally do. Mobile phone, pretty good as well, and also it will work as a backup Wi-Fi source for most people. Computer's probably the most important thing, and preferably a laptop. It means you're going to be able to set it up where you need to and move around actually within your home space as well. And also it's going to usually come with the sort of things that you might not have on a desktop computer, like a webcam and microphone and speakers, for example. And the main communications tool personally that I use from my computer, and I can use it anywhere and it's free, is Skype. It's great. It allows, for those people that haven't used it before, you can do sort of chat communications with people, but you can also share webcams, as you can see on this screen here, so you can see the person that you're talking to, and you can also share your desktop. So if you're working on something, you can show that to somebody else, they can comment on it, you can switch that over, you can see what they're working on. It's almost like sitting down at a meeting with somebody and looking at the same stuff. It's completely free, anyone can sign up for accounts, and really it's an essential tool if you're going to work meaningfully as a home worker. You could use one of the commercial alternatives instead. There are lots. I happen to use GoToMeeting, which if you're meeting with a bigger group of people is definitely better. It offers better interactions and muting of people, background noise, and recording actually of conversations and meetings and events as well. So that's really good, and like I said, there's lots of different commercial tools available you might look at. But to really go beyond just phone calls and having meetings with people, to actually get any real work done, you're going to need some sort of shared working environment. You're not just going to want to work on paper and post things backwards and forwards. That's going to be a bit challenging. Hopefully your organization was already set up with VPN to give virtual personal network access to your corporate infrastructure and tools and systems from remote access. That may not be the case, and of course in that, organizations are probably scrabbling to do that sort of thing now, but if you have that, that's great. Email is obviously an important way of transferring files as well, and continuing communications, written communications, etc. So hopefully you can pick up your email from your laptop. If you're logging on and connecting to work from a home computer, you may not have, for example, your Outlook client installed, but you can generally find webmail connections to your email, and your IT department can probably help you out with that. Or of course, many people will be doing their emails from their phones as well. But if you're really serious about, working as you would do from a normal desktop at work, email from the phone just isn't quick enough in terms of typing and the sort of attachments you might provide, etc. There are tools like Dropbox which enable you to share files, a sort of shared area where people can drop things in and pick things out, which is great for just something really quick, but it's not really very good for versioning, and it just becomes a large set of files. It's difficult to find what you want quite quickly. What you really want to be doing is using something like our Live Edition, which is a shared working platform designed for remote working teams. So we're just going to have a quick look at that. But here we are, and I'm logged in from a browser. Could be a tablet, mobile phone, or in this case my desktop. I can just simply come in and choose the project I'm interested in, and it's going to give me immediate access to the documentation for that project. I can come in and see the latest versions of files. I can see who's working on things. I can read the latest things. I can check them out and work on them myself and check them back in. I can add new content into here. It's a shared working environment for the project or for any sort of activity that you might be going on with, and you can have as many of those in here as you want to. Behind the scenes, as well as those files, it's going to be extracting data for plans, risks, issues, etc. So you can see what everybody's up to. You can see what the tasks are in the project, what's running behind, what you need to do next. Sharing that sort of insight and understanding is going to help things flow nice and easily. Of course, you can see from the dashboards here some information about who the key roles are and what the statuses are of things, etc. You can also do reporting from here, which would be if you're used to doing it sort of by spreadsheet and going around and asking people, which many people still do, that's going to be very difficult and time consuming when everyone's a remote worker. Here is all the data centralized. We can just go and grab that for reporting nice and easily. Also, things like approvals of documents. There's still many organizations, even though they use electronic systems for managing projects and work activity, will still do file document approvals by sending a hard copy around and getting people to sign off the sheets on the front, which is really, problematic if everyone's going to be home working. The time for posting and, of course, the passing of things, which people are going to be a bit sensitive about, physical materials, is not so good, whereas instead we can just have project approvals here. We can see things we haven't yet voted on, we can drill into them, find out who else is voting on them and have they voted yet, what they thought about those activities. We can read the files, we can electronically approve them through a system like this. That becomes much more efficient than any other way that you might conceivably do it when everyone's a home worker. So, using tools like this, and that's just scratching the surface of what you can do, allows you to continue working on your projects and delivering your business, whatever the circumstances might be. As long as people, like say, have an internet connection, they can continue to work in this sort of way. So just coming back and finishing off then, we have the next steps of thinking about working environment and keeping focus. Don't panic. As long as you've got a computer at home and those sort of connections we've been talking about, you should be able to continue working. I hope you found that helpful. Thank you very much.